Good morning. Welcome to the Delaware County Board of Supervisors meeting. This day, April 13th, 2021. It is now 10 a.m. and we'd like to open the regularly scheduled session of the Delaware County Board of Supervisors. Kylie, can you please take roll?
Chair, I'm not hearing you. Is anybody else having a problem not hearing the chair?
No, I can hear him just fine.
I just heard Jerry just fine. Chris, could you speak one more time, please?
Sure. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries. Can you please take roll, Kylie?
Yes. Supervisor Hemmingson?
I am here.
Supervisor Starkey?
Here.
Supervisor Short?
I'm here.
Chair Howard?
Here.
I'll take note that Supervisor Berkowitz is absent.
Thank you, Kylie. All right, please join me in a brief moment of reflection. All right, Supervisor Starkey, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'd like to introduce any new employees. Neil, do you know if there's any new employees introduced at this meeting?
Yes, Chair. I believe we have the Director of Building Maintenance on to introduce a new employee.
Okay, great.
Alan, are you there? You see him come?
Yeah, he's on.
Alan?
Okay. Are we here? Can you hear us?
You sure can, Alan.
Okay, unfortunately, can you see us?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to go with that for now. Unfortunately, you can't see Dalton, but I'm very, very happy to introduce you to Dalton Pelletier. He is a new custodian with us. He's been cleaning the Flynn Center for a few months now. He actually comes to us from the Workforce Center, based on calling them graduates, because we work a lot with the Delaware County Workforce Center and bring on folks to get them training. And when they prove to be exceptional employees, like Dalton has, we hire them on full time as soon as we can.
Excellent. Well, that's a great introduction, Alan. Does Dalton want to say any words to us? He's incognito.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to have been hired. I can't think of anything else to say. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Not to worry. Not to worry. Welcome on board.
Well, we appreciate you guys' time.
You bet, Alan. Thank you very much. Any others to introduce today, Neil?
Nope, that's it, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. County Council, anything to report out of closed session?
No, not today.
Okay, appreciate it. Then at this time, I'd like to request any deletions, corrections, or additions from the board members to the agenda. Okay, seeing none, then we'll go ahead and move on with brief board reports. Supervisor.
I'm sorry, I didn't unmute myself fast enough. Item number 10 on the consent calendar has a minor omission, a typo that's been brought forward to staff. On item number 1, it says the county board of without supervisors. So during consent, that'll be corrected.
Very good. Appreciate that.
And if we're pulling consent items, I'd like to pull number 4 and 5, but I thought we did that later. So
we do, but thank you.
Okay.
Supervisor. Kylie will take note of it, but let's move on with our brief board reports. Supervisor Starkey, please.
thank you, Chair Howard. It's been 3 weeks since our last meeting, so a few things have gone on. I've attended several of the 4th of July planning committees, and given the governor's announcement last week that we're shooting for a June 15th reopen date for the state to come back to quote unquote normal, if California can be normal, We find this as a committee to be really encouraging that our 4th of July plans are going to go forward. We are looking for a grand marshal for the parade. So if you know of somebody that you would like to nominate, please do so by April 26th. I attended the Mental Health Services Act stakeholders meeting. Yearly, the behavioral health provides an update to their 3-year plan. And they hold 3 community stakeholders meeting where the public is invited to learn more about the services of the behavioral health program and participate in discussions. The Mental Health Services Act is looking for a community board member. So if you are interested, and please contact Marcus Padilla at Behavioral Health. I attended a Chamber of Commerce meeting. I participated in a discussion about mental health issues and 5150 commitments, along with Sutter Hospital's concerns. After our last meeting, I reached out to Mitch Hanna and scheduled a meeting so I could understand exactly where he was coming from with regard to the mental health crises that are really hitting all communities, not just Del Norte County, but all communities in light of this pandemic. We've seen an increase. I had a long discussion with Dr. Caldwell from the Health Care District, and then I met with Supervisor Howard and the staff, the fine staff at DHHS and Behavioral Health to learn about the crises from their perspective. I had a telephone call with Senator McGuire regarding upcoming vaccination distribution. I'm really pleased to report that Del Norte County is ahead of the game when it comes to vaccine distribution. Typically in California, 16 and 18 and up won't happen until a couple days from now, April 15th. But as of April 1st, our county has been distributing vaccines to that age bracket, 50 and above, and then also down to 16 for Pfizer, 18 for Moderna. Currently, there is a clinic that's happening today from 10 to 12 and tomorrow 10 to 12 at the fairgrounds, and walk-ins are welcome to participate in that. I participated in a brown bag lunch with the Chamber of Commerce and Senator McGuire. Senator McGuire had requested this meeting as a way to reach out to our small businesses to make sure that they understand all the available resources and funding that could be coming from the California Recovery Act. I attended the local behavioral health meeting. We had a robust discussion regarding opting out of the SB 1976, which I still have a lot of concerns on, but it's on the agenda today for approval. And having heard their information and the services that they do provide to our community, I'm more comfortable with opting out of this particular bill. I attended the Redwood Coast Transit Authority meeting. It was the first meeting since the passing of Chuck Clarkson, who was the general manager at First Transit. And so our thoughts do go out to the First Transit family who held Chuck in such high regard. At this meeting, we had our annual workshop where we discussed the year-to-date budget, the history, including the COVID impacts and operations, and the extension of a new RFP. So that was interesting. I attended the Solid Waste Management Town Hall meeting. I was only able to attend briefly because of another conflict, but I watched the presentation afterwards. And I just want to say that it's never good news to learn about an increase in services or increase in prices for services, but having watched that presentation, it really does explain why that is necessary at this time. I attended the Del Norte County Planning Commission meeting. I was able to sit with Supervisor Short on an introduction to the cooperative education extension, and I'm actually very happy that that was good timing because we do have an item on the agenda today to approve or to request more funding for this program, which is vital for us in this local area. I attended several of the city council meetings. They seem to have a meeting every other night, but I like to watch them all. I'm kind of a local government junkie. I attended a food task force bi-monthly meeting. I finished my online training portion of the Community Emergency Response Team, the CERT program, and I'm excited that once we have the availability, we'll be doing the in-person training, and then I will be CERT trained. And then finally, the favorite thing that I did in the last 3 weeks was yesterday. I toured the landfill at Old Mill Road, And that might not be exciting to most people, but I have fond memories of that, going to the dump with my father as a child, and then now seeing the impacts that that type of disposal had years ago, and how we're having to adjust and do things differently now that we've learned more. So that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Starkey. Supervisor Short.
Thank you, Chair. I participated in a CARES Act webinar and learned about funding streams as a result of the CARES Act. Learned quite a bit there. I was pretty impressed with that webinar. I talked with Larry Karstead at North Coast EMS and had a discussion with him about last chance grade and how it affects our local EMS service and some other items regarding our local emergency medical response. I attended a Delaware Solid Waste Management ad hoc meeting in regard to negotiations with Hambro WSG. I attended the tri-agency meeting. Also wanted to thank Supervisor Starkey for setting up that meeting with Mitch Hanna to discuss Sutter Coast Hospital's issues. It was a smart thing to do, and it was quickly handled by Supervisor Starkey, and we're well on our way to dealing with that issue. Attended the DHS meeting in regard to Mental Health Services Act, the 3-year plan. Enjoyed that with Supervisor Starkey as well. Attended the Behavioral Health Board meeting at our local DHHS. Attended the City Council meeting. During that meeting, they talked about Daphne Lambert as she applied for, and he was successful in obtaining his permit to use city-owned property near the Crescent City Cemetery for the purpose of extending her winter shelter-in-place program, which promotes cleaning up homeless camps around the community. She's been very successful using the people that occupy those camps, and she's giving them contractor trash bags, and they're cleaning up their camps and bringing them to her. And she mentioned in that 1 week that she'd hauled over 3,000 pounds of trash from those homeless cleanup efforts. And it was remarkable that some folks invited her into their camps to show them the progress that they had made in cleaning their space. The amount of trust that they are having in Daphne and the successes that they're having there is very encouraging. It's great that she's finding ways to help those less advantaged and give them hope that they can make their situation better. So kudos to Daphne and her work. Attended Delaware Transportation Commission meeting, attended the RCTA annual workshop, as Supervisor Starkey mentioned. Met with Yana Velikovic and her crew at the Humboldt County Cooperative Extension and talked about their work and vision as it relates to our desires for Delaware County. I was not able to attend Delaware Solid Waste Management Town Hall, but it was recorded, so I reviewed that. And thanks to Ted and Jeremy for bringing forward that the laws and the mandated changes and the local problems that necessitate the changes that are upcoming. And I, along with Supervisor Starkey, yesterday toured the old dump site as well, and learned about some of the challenges they're facing there on a regular basis. So with that, that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Short. Supervisor Hemmingson.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I had, dealing with the normal constituent complaints that were pretty minor. I had a meeting with the True North group. I think we spent a full hour talking, getting to know each other back and forth. So hopefully they don't hate me too bad. I thought it was some good conversations, good things brought up. So we'll see where that goes. I had a whale working group pre-conference call, as well as a working group call later in that day, dealing with risk assessment of whale entanglements. There actually is a risk assessment going on right now that I'm missing, but there was did not appear to be any issues that we would have to deal with, so probably not missing much. I did have a Border Coast Regional Airport Authority meeting. Had an NCRP ad hoc meeting. Also, I listened in on the brown bag lunch that Senator McGuire put on, which was, as always, I don't know how he comes up with all the time that he has to do things. Then I had a personal Zoom meeting with him on Saturday, of all days. And I don't know how takes his Saturday with all the things that he's got going on with a new baby and plus all the legislative things happening. And he took the time out to go through about, I'm going to say about a fifth of the things that I wanted to talk about. Most of it had to do with fishing because I'm involved with that quite a little bit. We never got to the legislative things that I wanted to talk about. So he is setting up another meeting and we'll revisit those issues. As was mentioned, we had a local transportation commission meeting and I attended Golden State Natural Resources Committee meeting. But Chairman, if I may, I'd like to mention the passing of a really very good friend of mine, very close friend of mine, who was not only a good friend of mine, but a good friend of the community, Andy Larson. He spent a lot of time volunteering. I did a lot of work at the fairgrounds. And, you know, if you needed help with something and he could provide it, he just provided it. He was just a great guy. Sorry to hear of his passing. He'd been struggling with some health issues and just wanted to mention his passing. So thank you. That's it for me.
Yeah, appreciate you bringing that forward, Supervisor Hemmingson. Thank you for your report. Kylie, am I still coming through clear enough for you over there? Very good. So as Supervisor Starkey suggested, there was a lot of time that passed between our last meeting and a lot going on. I want to thank Alan Winnegravo for taking me up to Barrow Boys Ranch. As you're aware, the county did close that facility several years ago, and concerns with this particular property in our district, my district, and deferred maintenance, I'd like to see the board begin to address some of the issues as they lie. Alan's crew has done an incredible job keeping up that facility with limited resources, but we do really need to find a home for Barrow and hope we can work on that project together over the coming year. Also had a meeting with constituents concerning Hyuchi and Hazeltine with the sheriffs, and I appreciate Sheriff Afferson joining me up there for these conversations and helping to resolve some of the issues. Also continue to have a great deal of discussion around the Board of Forestry Fire Safe Regulations, which is on our agenda today. And I want to give a big shout out right now to Director Kunstl and then also Jana Valenkovic from UC Cooperative Extension on the great amount of heavy lifting that has been done by both in really helping us to understand what this means for Del Norte County and also rural California. So a lot of great work there. Had a lot of discussions to get us to the point of having a letter on our agenda today specific to the UC budget, something we've supported a great deal in the past. Also attended North Coast Regional Air Quality District meeting, and then also had a meeting with Senator Ben Allen on UC budgets. In addition, as everybody's mentioned, attended the town hall meeting, brown bag lunch with Senator McGuire. And also, as Supervisor Starkey mentioned, had a meeting with Director Snow and representatives from our healthcare district concerning mental health and issues that were brought forward during our last board meeting. Really wanted to try to fully understand the comments that were made by Sutter Coast during our last board meeting to really see what was going on there. And I really appreciate both Supervisors Short and Starkey diving into this headlong. I know that you guys are deeply involved in the mental health pieces of this community as supervisors, and hopefully we'll get to some resolution soon, because certainly we need Sutter as a partner in this community, and we also need mental health to be adequately looked at here, as it is a big concern for all. As Supervisor Hemmingson mentioned, attended a Border Coast Regional Airport Authority meeting. And then in addition, attended a meeting with Jeff Marzell and his staff and concerned residents in Big Flat concerning a proposed mountain bike route, which the Board of Supervisors did support last year. This proposed trail on the Hurdy-Gurdy Creek would be a Hurdy-Gurdy Creek loop for mountain bikes. And there's some concerns with citizens up in that neighborhood of what that might mean for Big Flat and the residents and the impacts. So we're trying to address those concerns early during the planning process, and we had a really good discussion there. And then in addition, attended a Del Norte Local Transportation Commission meeting, as Supervisor Hemmingson in short mentioned. And then also had a meeting with Consul General Mieta of the consulate in San Francisco concerning raising the visibility of Del Norte County and Crescent City and our relations as we move forward to the 2021 Olympics this year, and ensuring the visibility of our community is recognized more broadly than just in Del Norte County and Crescent City, but throughout the United States as a model community for relations abroad. And received very good comments back from Consul General on that and his staff. Also had a meeting with Dr. Raywald specific to potentially sliding backwards this week and what that means for Del Norte County. As I know, this was a strong concern expressed by many business owners who contacted me last week, and we're trying to address the issue. And I believe the issue will be addressed by the state. I don't think they want to see at this point any sliding backwards of counties. After talking with the governor's office and Jesse Gilkoff at length about this last week, with prepared comments by Dr. Raywald, I think we might have slowed the tide potentially, especially with some new standards that are being proposed by the state. So we'll see how that unfolds. But I do want to thank Dr. Raywald for staying on his toes on this. It's a very complex, complicated issue, but as we've all said in the past, the formulas and models set aside for rural California did not work for rural California. And I'm glad we're looking at potentially a new model, although late in the game, that would not allow us to slide backwards. So hopefully we could get there. And then lastly, I want to end and reflect on Highway 101 at Last Chance grade. As most of you guys are aware, several weeks ago, we had some significant injuries in the grade, both with 2 GR Sunberg employees and then also a Caltrans employee that's all near and dear to us. These guys risk life and limb every day to provide connectivity for Del Norte County to the rest of the world. And in speaking to GR Sunberg representatives this weekend, who I've stayed in very close contact with since the injuries occurred, the spirit to get back on the job and get back to life is very strong with these folks. And we've got to give them a lot of kudos because, you know, they're back out there every day on a very, very unstable slide just to make sure things stay open. So, you know, from Del Norte County to Caltrans, from Del Norte County to GR Stumberg and the rest of the staff up there working this slide, thank you for providing the services that you do to keep us connected to the rest of the world. It's most appreciated. And with that, I'd like to move on at this time with the consent agenda. And I do understand Supervisor Short, there was a minor modification that Kylie potentially has taken note of. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So at this time, I'd like to move for a motion on that.
For just 10 or for all of it?
For items 1 through 17, and you're
I
looking
wanted,
at full 10, is that correct? For
I wanted
discussion?
to pull 4 and 5, please.
Okay, so we'll pull 4 and 5 from that consent agenda approval.
Move to approve the consent agenda, eliminating 4 and 5, or not eliminating, but pulling 4 and 5 at this time.
I'll
Thank
second
you.
that.
And we have a second. Okay, public comment, Kylie.
Chair, I'm not seeing any public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and bring it back to the board for approving consent agenda items 1 through 17 minus items 4 and 5. Kylie,
Supervisor
please.
Starkey,
Yes.
Supervisor Short,
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson,
Yes.
Chair Howard.
Yes. All right, we'll circle back around with it a little later. Supervisor Starkey, let's go ahead and open up for the 1025 item, which is our public comment period. Members of the public may address the board on matters which are within the jurisdiction of the board. If you are addressing the board regarding matters listed on the agenda, you may be asked to hold your comments till the board takes up that matter. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Kylie?
Chair, I don't have any written public comment, and I'm not seeing any hands raised online.
Okay, very good. Well, since we have a few minutes, let's go ahead and circle back with those consent agenda items. Item number 4 and 5. Supervisor Stark, do you want to address those together or individually?
I think together would be fine.
Okay.
I emailed Sheriff Apperson on Sunday, and I don't expect anybody to answer me on a Sunday. But I still haven't gotten any information back yet, and I don't know if he's on the call today, perhaps to answer any questions. But in reviewing this, my questions were, if they committed a crime while they were in state prison, they were being held in state prison, they come here on charges, and then if they're sentenced back to state prison, I just wanted to understand why we needed to pay that. I understand for safekeeping, if they were normally going to be sentenced to the county jail, and we needed, because of their risk level, to be in prison, to be housed in state prison. I understand that, but my question that I really wanted to know is, were they convicted of these new offenses? And if so, what were their sentences? And just doing a quick search on CDCR, I noticed one of the inmates isn't even in custody. And I looked, and he's not even in custody here locally. So I was just kind of concerned. I just had those questions, and I don't know if Sheriff Apperson is on today, or if somebody that has the answers to these could help me understand this more.
I certainly do not, Supervisor Starkey. Maybe County Council or CAO Lopez. If not,
I don't.
okay.
No, we reviewed the language of the contract, and there's a state law that provides for it, but the facts of the case are not something we know about.
So I guess back to this is, I just wanted to, why would we enter a contract for someone who appears to have been released from custody? And so we shouldn't do that until actually he's sentenced, is what I'm thinking. But again, because I don't know, I don't have those answers. I just wanted to have that verification. And like I said, I emailed on Sunday, and I know he's busy, so I'm not, but because I don't know that, I think maybe we should just table these until I can get those answers, unless you guys are comfortable moving forward without that.
What's the time sensitivity of these two authorizations, Joel or Neil?
I don't know.
I don't know that
They're
either,
pretty
Chair.
specific. I would have thought that they would already be kind of in operation, persons in state prison, but if they're not, maybe they're jail waiting to go to state prison. I don't know the facts.
Right, they could be in
Sure.
another county jail, but again, because I just looked up the CDCR website, and I also looked up our local jail, and I don't see the Williams fella in either. The other guy is in state prison in Kern County, but
If I could, Chair, I would just like to make note of the alternative on these, and it reads, without this agreement, the county would be in contempt of a court order, as well as continued workers' compensation claims for physical and mental abuse. I don't know what the particulars are of the case, but I'm not sure we would want to opt out of this and be in contempt of court.
Thanks for pointing that out, Supervisor Short.
Yeah, if I could, Chairman, if it's pretty important, it seems like maybe the sheriff would be on to answer the questions, or somebody from the department. Nobody seems to know the answers to Supervisor Starkey's questions, but I don't, Darren brings up a good point. I certainly don't want to put the county in jeopardy either. I usually rely on the department head or the to have the knowledge to bring that forward, that there's a reason that he brings it forward. But I got to give Supervisor Starkey some credit for looking into it a little deeper, because I don't have the answers to those questions either.
So let's do this, board. CEO Lopez, if you could reach out to Mr. Waltz or Mr. Apperson and see if they could join us later in the board agenda, maybe before the board agenda closes today, so we could get these two issues addressed. As Supervisor Short mentioned, there is potentially some sensitivity on this. So if we can address it today, I'd like to. So if you or Kylie could reach out to Sheriff Apperson, that would be terrific.
Yep, we can do that right now.
We should probably note that these costs are reimbursable through AB 109 by the state controller's office. So it's not a, we're not incurring any cost to the county for the keeping of these safekeepers.
And Chair, I do have hands raised for public comment on these items. Do you want to wait until the sheriff is online, or?
Please, I think that would be the best course of action, is to hear from the sheriff or sheriff staff about this before we take public comment, because we won't take action at this time. So let's go ahead and table this to later in our agenda and hope that somebody could join us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and move on with some general government items at this time. And item number 22, which is approve and authorize the chair to sign an agreement between the County of Del Norte and Minter Harnish for professional services for the 6th cycle housing element, housing sites inventory update, zoning ordinance, and general plan amendments to accelerate housing production, environmental review planning project as requested by the Director of Community Development. Good morning, Director Kunstl. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic. Good morning, board. Thank you for having this item on today's agenda. We're very excited to be at the point of being able to hire a consultant to prepare this very important document and supplementary information related to housing in our community. I'm sure most of you are aware of the fact that there are housing issues that are facing our community, and hopefully the housing element will be able to identify some of those issues and help us find solutions in order to move forward. If you have any questions regarding this, I'd be more than happy to answer any specific questions.
Director, if you can expand a little bit on what this generally means for a change in our housing element. Do you believe it's going to add potentially developable sites in Del Norte County? I know we've discussed quite a bit potentially the impacts of regulations coming in from the state as it relates to a later agenda item. I'm curious how all this might balance out as we begin to contract for these professional services. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a very good question. As part of the housing element update, the state of California Housing and Department of Housing and Community Development gives each jurisdiction a regional housing needs allocation. So we'll be given a number of units that we have to be able to find suitable sites for. And some of those sites will be located within the city of Crescent City, and the remainder will be located within the county. And those sites have to be available for a variety of different income levels. What Chair Howard is referring to are the upcoming changes to our fire safe regulations and what impacts those may have on the areas that we may have available for development. So I think as part of this effort, we're going to need to be focusing on areas where we may find suitable sites that will either be located outside of the state responsibility area, or we will not have the the added constraints that the updated regulations will likely place upon us, or to be looking at sites that will be able to comply with those regulations. As we move forward in the update, we should have a better idea as far as where the state fire safe regulations stand when we develop our sites inventory for the housing element update.
Thank you, Director.
You're
Any other questions for Director Kunstler at this time? Okay, let's go ahead and open it up for public comment. Kylie?
Just one moment. Linda has had her hand raised for some time. Since number 4 and 5. I'm not sure if she wants to have a public comment on this item also. I will go ahead and promote
Please.
her and then see if she has something to discuss on this item.
Thank you, Kylie.
Mhm. Linda, you're on.
Listen, I don't know what happened the last time during public comment, but I didn't get to speak because you didn't recognize my hand or you couldn't see it. I don't know. But this is in regards to number 4 and 5. So I'm going to read them now.
We're actually going to address those. They were pulled from the consent. And we're going to hopefully address those when some representation from the Sheriff's Department joins us later. If you would like to state those concerns now, that's okay. Or you can hold those concerns to when the sheriff or his staff.
Well, I appreciate that, Chair Howard, but I don't believe that the sheriff did his due diligence, and I have all the case factors here regarding, especially the one inmate who's already been released, and the other one is to enforce that. Yeah, he does need to be kept at Pelican Bay, because there's no way that this Mr. Laura would be handled in our Del Norte County Jail. They don't have the experience that Pelican Bay officers do to handle these type of inmates. But the other one, I don't think that Mr. Apperson done his due diligence, and he doesn't even know that the inmate's been released to Alameda County. And he does have to show up on the 15th of April, Chris, for a hearing for a weapons possession. But in my opinion, Chris, that's ridiculous, because if he's in Alameda County and the probation department feels he's such a high risk, then he'll get in trouble down there. We won't have to take on that expense of that inmate. So I would love to share these little case factors with you, but if you're going to wait until Apperson comes on, I hope he goes over to the courthouse and gets the records out, because I did pull the records yesterday. I spent 3 hours over there.
Okay. Thank you for your public comments. I'm hoping the sheriff does join us later, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. I don't know what happened, but nobody could see I was flipping out. Nobody could see my hand. And it was important.
Chair, I just want to clarify, I did see Linda's hand raised, and that's why I said we have public comment for number 4 and 5. Did you want to take that up now or wait until the sheriff's on? And you clarified we were going to wait till the sheriff was on. I just want Linda to know I could see your hand, but I just thought we were waiting until the items were going to be discussed.
You're correct, Kylie. We were waiting, but no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And Chair, I'm sorry, I just want to state.
I had to re-plug in. I had to re-plug in because you couldn't see it the first time.
Yeah, we're still on item 22. So is there any?
I don't know what 22 was, so that's fine. I'll wait till you guys get back on with this stuff.
Okay, Kylie.
Chair, I don't see any other public comment on item number 22.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's circle back to the board then. Kylie?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve and authorize the chair to sign the agreement between the County of Del Norte and Mintier Harnish.
Appreciate that. And we do have a second. Kylie, please pull the vote.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. All right, let's go ahead and move on with our 10:30 timed item, which is an update from Dr. Raywald. Doctor,
Chair,
sorry, go ahead, Kylie.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We had a proclamation that was on the consent.
Yes.
Okay,
Get to that. Let's go ahead and stick with our timed agenda items. And
okay,
then circle back.
perfect. Just making sure. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Dr. Raywald, are you with us today? There you are.
I am. Can you hear me?
I certainly can.
Okay. Good morning to the board and to everyone listening. I will try and be brief because it sounds like you have a very full agenda again today. There's been a lot of interest about how many vaccine doses we've been giving out. According to our database, the total doses given so far are about 12,500. There are quite a few first and second doses completed. We think we've reached about 43% of our seniors having finished second doses. There are some people who've gotten their doses in other counties, some people gotten it out of state and vice versa. We have a lot of people who work here and live across the border, for example. We'd like to be better. We still have seen some vaccine clinics that aren't filling, which we don't like to see. But we're doing our best to get the word out and get people in to get vaccinated. Probably the biggest thing on everyone's mind is the warning I gave last week about the probability that we would go into purple tier this week. The very day I gave that warning on the radio, the CDPH changed the calculation a bit for how that happens. And I don't think it's going to happen. So in a nutshell, I think we're okay. We're going to stay in red. It's not necessarily still good news, but it's better than it could have been. Basically what happened is they decided to require that both of their main measures of how well a county is doing had to be moving in the wrong direction in order to have a county move into a lower tier. In the past, it was only one out of those two. So case rate and test positivity rate are the two measures that they usually use. We met the criteria by our case rate. I think we still meet the criteria by our case rate, but the test positivity rate actually is getting better. So they are going to hold us in the red tier. I'm certain of it. The other thing that they added is they wanted to make sure that whatever was going on in a county, it was not adversely affecting hospitals, which is something we've been asking them to consider for a long, long time. So I was really happy to see that. So by that criteria as well, I think we would be held harmless. I do want to point out though that we lost 2 other people over the weekend in Del Norte County at the hospital from COVID. And that's sad news to report to the board. So we're not done yet. It can still happen. We currently have only 1 person in the hospital today. But we did have some people that were struggling with this, and a couple of people passed away. Testing profile for the COVID virus is about the same in the county, not a lot of changes. The other big news that is probably going to surface, or people already know about it, is that the CDC decided this morning to pause the use of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine made by Janssen. The reason is there's been a series of reports, a small number, only 6 cases out of about 6 million doses given, 6 or 7 million doses given, of relatively young women developing an unusual syndrome where their platelet level drops in their blood and they develop clots. And I think one of those cases, the person actually died. So they're taking it seriously. They're asking everybody to pause using this vaccine until they can get some more data and look at it a little bit more closely. It's kind of similar to what we were hearing about the AstraZeneca vaccine in Europe a few weeks ago. But again, relative to the number of doses given and number of people treated, this is a very, very rare event. 6 out of, that's like 1 in a million. So we're hopeful that that's all it really represents is events that might have happened anyway or might have been triggered by something else, but they want us to pause using the vaccine temporarily at least until they can look into it further. So that was on the news this morning. I'm sure people are going to hear about that. I just want to make sure everyone understands the perspective. It's a very, very rare event so far. but they're going to collect more data and see if there's a pattern to any of this that they can point their finger at and take extra precautions. But so for now, we're just not going to use the vaccine, Johnson & Johnson. The other vaccines are still available, still being used. No new restrictions on anything else. And I think I'll stop there and take any questions you may have.
Great. Let's go ahead and open up the questions from the board if there are any at this time. Okay, then we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. Kylie?
Yes, give me one moment. Linda, you are on.
Thank you. Dr. Rewell, I have a question in regards to ivermectin. Dr. Perry, I believe his name was, went before the Senate and introduced the possibility of repurposing the ivermectin medicine. I injected myself December 26th with ivermectin. That's something that you use on cows, pigs, and horses. And that was mentioned in the Senate hearings that although he didn't recommend it, the use of ivermectin, that they were in South America using that ivermectin. So if I've injected myself, how do I go about getting a card to show that I have been inoculated? And secondly, the FDA website has only approved these vaccines for emergency use only, meaning they haven't approved of these drugs that are being issued to people. And, I found in their report within the first 28 days after the vaccination of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines is when that was the most troubling of times, either by death or other serious issues would arise. So, so the Johnson, you said, vaccine is causing clots, which could lead to embolism of the lung. Is that what I'm understanding? Can you touch on any of those things I just mentioned?
Sure. The ivermectin issue's been kind of talked back and forth. The data that I looked at about 3 or 4 weeks ago, it's been a while since I actually looked at this, seemed to show that there wasn't really any proven benefit of it. I mean, it is a drug that's been out there for a long time. And you're right, it's used mostly in veterinary medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, I mean, it's a well-established drug. It's been around for a long, long time.
2015.
But the data that I've seen, which admittedly is about a month old now, didn't seem to show a real huge benefit to this. In fact, they couldn't show any benefit at all. So they were not recommending it as a widespread preventive measure. And it would not trigger your immune system in any way. The idea behind ivermectin is that it somehow blocked the movement of the virus through your body if you were exposed. So it would act sort of like a booster to your overall health, but it wouldn't necessarily trigger immune response unless you'd actually been exposed. So if you haven't been exposed and you don't know it, I don't know if it's going to help you that much to assume that it's going to prevent anything. The other issue about the clots, like I mentioned, they decided to halt the use temporarily, at least, until they can get some more information about this. But the other side of the story is that COVID infection itself is clearly been shown to cause clotting disorders in some people. In fact, quite a few people who died at a fairly young age died from things like stroke or clotting in the lungs. And those are serious consequences potentially of the infection itself. So whether the vaccine triggers the immune response in a way that mimics what the infection can do in these individuals, that remains to be seen. But I mean, you have to kind of wonder that maybe the same process going on in a person's immune system that might make them have that kind of problem from the infection might also be triggered by the vaccine as well. But fortunately, it seems to be, in both cases, it seems to be pretty rare. But it's not zero. It's something to watch out for. So what we really want people to think about is if they've been vaccinated with the vaccine, and at least, within that first 3 weeks or so after vaccination, if they experience really unusual headache or trouble breathing or really unusual pain in their abdomen, those might all be signs or symptoms rather of clotting that was unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
But again, bear in mind that the case number for this phenomenon so far is really, really low relative to the number of doses that have been given. So we think it's a rare event, but just as an added measure of caution, those are the things that people would look for. Or perhaps the symptoms of a clot in the leg, like a DVT, swelling or redness or pain in one leg or the other. Those would be the signs that we would want people to watch for.
Okay, so you don't approve of the ivermectin, because I know that it's supposed to not only cure the corona or the COVID virus, but it also prevents it, according to this doctor that went before the Senate hearings to get it approved by FDA.
Yeah, Linda, I looked into this a while back and I wasn't convinced that it had any proven benefit. Now, if something new has emerged in the last month, I might not be aware of it. But as far as I know, it's still not.
It did win the Nobel Medical Prize in 2015 for physiology medicine. So I'm just kind of.
Thank you.
Yeah, kind of a puzzle. Tell you what, I'll try and look at the question again, just for the benefit of everyone listening, and see if we can come up with anything different than what we concluded a month ago.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Concerns. Any further public comment, Kyle?
Chair, I'm not seeing any more public comment at this time.
Okay. And there's no further questions from the board. Is that correct? We'll thank Dr. Raywald for continuing to join us at our meetings and keeping the public informed and up to date on what is occurring here with Corona in Del Norte County. Thank you again, Dr. Raywald.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to item number 20, which is our 1040 timed item. Receive a presentation on the update 2021 Del Norte operational area operation plan, and approve and adopt the 2021 Del Norte operational area all hazard emergency operations plan, and instruct the Office of Emergency Services to provide a copy of the plan and training to support its utilizations to all operational area partners as requested by the Office of Emergency Services Manager. Kimmy, are you aware of this today? Your mic is muted.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, supervisors and citizens of Del Norte, for giving me a few minutes of your time this morning. I appreciate it. So yeah, I'm here to present on, I'm going to share my screen real quick, if you don't mind. Can everyone see that?
Sure can.
All right. So I'm here to talk to you about our new emergency operations plan. We have not had an update of this plan since 2005, and typically these plans are at least reviewed and updated about every 2 years, so it was overdue. There was some funding secured through fiscal year 18 and 19 Homeland Security grant program to update this plan plus annexes to this plan. We put out the request for proposals in March of last year, and that was right about the time COVID hit, everybody knows. So it took us a few months to get the project kicked off, but the project did get kicked off in June. And we worked with consultant Tidal Basin, who's got a lot of experience in this type of work, and basically provided a lot of bang for the buck. So an emergency operations plan, I call it the document that tells us how we all play together in the sandbox. So, our emergency services is really broad. It doesn't just cover fire law and EMS like most people think. We work with, the Forest Service, the Park Service, with Public Works, with the school district, with the harbor, lots of partners. And so we need to have a good structure outlined on how we all work together when things go really poorly. So the EOP outlines operational priorities, an operational structure, designates roles and responsibilities, and lays out procedures for the basic emergency management functions, such as like public notification. So this is what this looks like on a local level. So the EOC doesn't command field resources. What it does is provide support, coordination, and facilitation for those resources. So, like our fire trucks run every day and do their job, and they know how to do that well. We're not going to get involved in something like that. But if there's a larger incident that exceeds the resources that they have in order to perform that function, or if they need to coordinate with other agencies, that's when we would activate the EOC and implement this plan. We're part of a larger structure in California. It's called SIMS, the State Emergency Management System. There's 5 layers to SIMS, and that goes from the field, incident command post, local government, such as incorporated cities or special districts, the operational area, which in California is the same footprint as the county, the coastal region, which is a group of counties along the coast, and then state operations center. So as you can see, we're sort of the middle of the pack here. Because Del Norte only has 1 incorporated city, there's usually not an emergency operations center activation at the local level. We usually go straight from a field to an OA activation. So like I said, we worked with consultant Tidal Basin. They are a great company, 35 years experience working in all types of hazards. One of the things I really like about them is you work with a lot of these consultants that just work off of a template and sort of fill in the blanks. And we wanted something customized for us that really appreciates the specific situation that we have in Del Norte. We're not a typical community, as everybody knows. We're rural, we have few access points. It takes time to get resources to us. So they really spend time working on a customized approach, which we appreciated. They've got good experience in gap analysis, operational planning, exercise training, strategic planning, and grant writing. They've done work all over the state, but they specifically have a lot of experience in California in relation to California regulations and the unique things that we have to deal with here. And so the project team that we worked with, Ms. Deventhal, Mr. Karsten, and Ms. Klein, and I actually invited Ms. Deventhal to join us today for a minute or two, just so that they can speak a little bit about their business and their experience. So, Ashley, are you there?
I am. Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. So first, I want to say we really enjoyed working with Kimmy and her entire team. You have a great emergency management group, a great group of volunteers, and they're very dedicated to the community, so it was enjoyable for us. So yeah, our background, a lot of it you have here. Our company has 35 years experience in all aspects of emergency management. So for this, as far as developing the plan, we're really focused on preparedness, which is basically, everything that happens prior to the disaster, everything that we do to get ready to make sure that we're prepared to deal with one. But our company also works in recovery and response and mitigation with kind of other groups or other departments separate from myself. For this project, we started with just going through current plans and looking and identifying gaps, not only in gaps in best practices, of course, but also we wanted to make sure that everything matched the regulations and the requirements of the state of California. So we went through and kind of identified the gaps. And then as we built the plan, we made sure that we checked all those boxes and made sure that we were taking care of everything we needed, both from a regulation standpoint and from best practices. I think that's about all I have, unless anyone has any questions for us.
Thank you, Ashley.
At this time.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've got a few more slides if you don't mind, and then we can follow up with any questions.
Please.
Is that okay? Okay. Absolutely. So this process did take us about 7 months. And as Ashley mentioned, we worked with a planning team here comprised of local subject matter experts. So we have representatives on our local planning team from our medical partners, public health, the city, our volunteers, fire, law, Cal OES, the tribes, and our access and functional needs community. So we made sure that we, got some good folks involved. that could really help inform our consultants about the unique needs and circumstances of Del Norte. And so she mentioned this, there's sort of a system on how to do this. And so this EOP was written to be compliant with FEMA's Developing and Maintaining Emergency Operations Plan, with California Office of Emergency Services Standardized Emergency Management System, the National Incident Management System, and the Emergency Management Accreditation Program, which is something that I'm trying to work this program towards. So this, the EMAP really is sort of the gold standard for OES programs to make sure that we're meeting all the criteria that'll make sure that we're most effective in our response. And then really important to this plan, after the draft plan was developed, Tidal Basin did conduct an exercise for us based on a realistic real world event here. So it was a big storm that led to a countywide power outage. And so we exercised that sort of pretend scenario with our partners to make sure that this plan that they have drafted for us worked well for us in a scenario. The information from that was gathered and then made sure that sort of finalized before the final draft came out. We've fed that information back into it to fix any issues that came up. So following today's adoption of the EOP, as I mentioned, there is additional funding for some annexes to this plan. We've already awarded a contract for debris management, and we'll be meeting with that team for the first time this afternoon. We are also getting ready to award a contract for volunteer and donation management annex. We've gone out to bid for fatality management and power outage annexes, and then we're looking, we've submitted through Del Norte Local Transportation Commission for funding to do an evacuation and transportation annex. We'll also be looking hopefully next year to do a recovery plan. Some other things we've got going on that kind of tie into this right now. We've got EOC week coming up in May. And so anyone who's familiar with our Emergency Operations Center knows that we share that space with the fire department. And so our EOC sort of lives in boxes, which we pull out and use for an activation. And so as the plan's been updated, the materials and tools that we use are going to be updated in those boxes so that an activation runs smoothly for us. We'll be training all through the summer. We've already started training with our EOC team for a full-scale tsunami evacuation exercise that's planned in October. And we'll invite the community to participate in that with us. And then, as you all know, we're also consistently working on equipment needs throughout our community. We know that generators are a big deal right now, and we've got some grant funding to help assist with getting some of those installed. And as the public communications test, the tsunami siren test that happened about 2 weeks ago, we know that we had failures in about half of our sirens, and we're working diligently right now to get those back functional as well. So take any questions or comments that anybody has now at this time.
Okay, very good. Any questions or comments from the board?
I would like to just say two things. One, I really appreciate the thoroughness of the OES plan, but also I really appreciate the drills. And I think that those are just so beneficial. I was here at the Flint Center the day that you did the drill for the tsunami. And just your response to it, your feedback, you wanting to hear from people, you wanting to know what worked, what didn't work. That just shows the testament that you are committed to the process and the outcomes. And I'm grateful for you and the commitment that you give to us.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions from the board at this time?
Yes, Chair. I'd just like to say, Kimmy, I think you've done a great job on this. I've been involved in updating a couple of EOPs, and I truly appreciated toward the back of the document there is those vital pieces of paper that you give to your unit leaders, and it says read this entire document before you take action, and that is so helpful to unit leaders in the field during these emergencies. It gives them a checklist of things they need to think about, and it's very cohesive and helps to keep their management of their area flowing. And I think it was very well thought out. And I appreciate the job you did here.
Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, if I could, I would be remiss if I didn't give you kudos also, Kenny. Thanks so much for everything you do. But I'm curious about the failures of the sirens. You know, just when were they tested last? And, you know, I heard the reports were that it was kind of expected to have failures. And if there's an expectation to have a failure, I just was wondering why they're not looked at sooner. And maybe you'll have, you know, more information as you find out what the failures are and how to repair them. But I was just curious about that. But thanks so much for what you do. I know you've been really put to the test here lately. We've given you a lot of things to do, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's been an interesting year for sure. And I can briefly address your question about the sirens. It's been 2 years since those were tested. This is an annual test, and it wasn't performed last year because it was right when COVID happened. And all of us who participate in this test agree that if there's an emergency happening currently, not to do this because we don't want to confuse or further upset the public. And just, you know, this is a test that happens across 3 counties. It's Del Norte County, Humboldt County, and Mendocino County. And so it is a joint collaboration. The year before, it didn't happen because of the government shutdown, which wasn't happening right in March, but it did happen during the sort of paperwork period because there has to be permits filed and everything else to do a test like this because it includes not just the sirens, but civil air patrol flyover and, you know, multiple facets. So it has been 2 years. I would say there's an expectation that there will be some failures because nothing ever goes perfect. And we test because we work to find those gaps. And so it's emergency management. If there weren't gaps, I want to have a job. Nothing flies perfect in emergency management. It's too complicated. And but I want the folks out there to know this is also why we do multiple methods of public notification, why there's not just sirens or just Everbridge or just radio. It's why we have redundancy. And so that we hope that one of those methods will get to people. And so going forward in the future, I do hope to, once we get these sirens assessed and figure out what's going wrong with them, you know, we live in a marine environment, so it degrades. And I visually inspected them. I didn't see any signs of vandalism. But once we get a contractor out there, you know, maybe we'll find out more. But once they are back operational and functional, I do hope to include that in our budget going forward to make sure that these things are maintained on a regular basis.
Thank you for priming that short response, Supervisor Hemmingson. That was very detailed. Appreciate it. Now, let's go ahead and open it up for public comment at this time. Kylie, is there any additional public comment for Ms. Scott?
Yes, give me one moment. Linda, you are on.
Yes, I live out in the Birch Track, and I would like to say that I always hear those tsunami warnings out here. However, I seem to be having problems getting hooked up to the telephone issue, and I'd like to know if it's possible to get it through Alexa on Echo Dot. The alarm. No,
Are you talking about the Everbridge notice?
Yes, the Everbridge.
Honestly, I'm not sure. I don't use Alexa myself, so I'm not sure how that system functions, but I will look into it.
Alexa, shut up! God almighty. What's that again? Sorry. She heard me talking.
I said I'm not familiar with Alexa, so I'm not sure how that system activates, but I will look into it.
That would be good. Because if some people can't hear because of their hearing and they have an Echo Dot at home, the Echo would alert them. And I don't know, like I said, my phone, I I don't know why it's not working with the Everbright or whatever it's called, but I don't get an alarm through that at all. So it's something to think about.
If you didn't get one through that, you can send me an email, Linda, and I'll follow up on your account and see what the hiccup is.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment, Kylie?
Chair, I'm not seeing any at this time.
Okay. Well, as the rest of the supervisors paid a great deal of attention, Ms. Scott has done an incredible job holding together a very diverse set of emergency issues that face Delaware County on a daily basis. And the coordination that we see out of her office, and more importantly, the commitment that was mentioned by every supervisor today is very much appreciated. I think, Ms. Scott, we want to get you to a point where you don't feel you're living in a box or boxes over with the at the firehouse. I'm sure they enjoy your company over there, but I think to really elevate emergency services in this county, we're going to really have to find you a new home at some point and a way that emergency services could operate effectively here, because we do have so many different types of disasters that face us, in particular tsunamis, which you guys train for quite well. So as mentioned by the rest of the board, we really appreciate the great job you're doing here, and thank you again for your commitment.
Thank you. Appreciate all your comments.
All right. At this time, we're going to go ahead and move on with item 21, which is to receive.
Chair, there was a second part to that OES item to approve and adopt
I apologize. Thank you. Can we have a motion from the board? Supervisor Hemmingson, you're on mute if you're making that motion.
But yeah, thanks. I would move that we approve and adopt the 2021 Delmar operational area all hazard emergency operations plan, and instruct the Office of Emergency Services to provide a copy of the plan and training to support its utilization to all operational area partners.
Thank you, Supervisor. And we do have a second. Kylie, please poll the vote.
Supervisor Starkey,
Yes.
Supervisor Short,
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson,
Yes.
Chair Howard.
Yes. All right. Thanks, Kylie, for that quick reminder. We're going to go ahead and then again jump back to item 21, which is receive a presentation on a promised neighborhood grant opportunity and approve and authorize the chair to sign a letter of support for the promised neighborhood grant as requested by True North Organizing Network. And Kylie, it's my understanding they were here with us today. Okay.
Yes, Chair.
I see both Jim McClellan and Terry Sapahan joining us. Terry, are you taking the lead on this for True North?
I'm taking the lead, Chair, and Kevin Malone, our lead organizer for Del Norton Tribal Lands, and Amy Campbell-Blair are also on this call.
Very good. Please get us started.
Thank you. I first want to get started by thanking the Yurok tribe for leaning into this opportunity. Little more than 5 weeks ago, we went to them like the day after or 2 days after we discovered this Department of Education opportunity through the U.S. Department of Education. It is a $30 million grant application over 5 years. We still want to be able to expand upriver from the Yurok Reservation and serve public schools and old children in affected school districts in Humboldt County as well. But for a variety of reasons, we decided to focus the grant application in Del Norte, in Klamath and Smith River and Crescent City, and at the high school and Sunset High. It is a cradle to career pathway. And it is designed to be a wraparound alignment grant to work with the school district and the county and the city and the tribes and the community on identifying gaps and filling those gaps with different support and different programs. We're excited about it. And I have to say, I've been excited about every single adult that has talked to us about this and met with us, including the tribe, including county supervisors, including city council and other community members. We all recognize our kids come first and trying to find ways to support them, not only now, but in developing a career and identifying options, whether they develop a business locally or go away to school and come back with skills. We're trying to address that in a number of ways. So with that introduction, I'd just like to introduce Mr. Jim McQuillan, Director of the Yurok Tribe's Department of Education. Jim.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for hearing this item today to the board and all others. I'm Jim McQuillan. I'm the Yurok Tribe's Education Director. And this is a unique grant, the Promise Neighborhood Grant, which it's a pretty large proposal with many partners, several partners, including Del Norte County Unified School District, Del Norte Child Care Council, the first 5 of Del Norte County, Northern California Indian Development Council, and others also as partners. It's a pretty large partnership. The Yurok Tribe would be taking the lead on it. And it would be unique in that we would be serving both American Indian students and families, as well as other underserved groups in Del Norte County. And as Terry says, from cradle to career, trying to support students in many different ways, from tutoring to having a career pathway and lots of things in between. The Yurok Tribal Council has heard this proposal twice now and fully endorses it and supports it. We hope all the other partners sign on also. There's a pretty extensive MOU that we would be asking the board to sign off on if you agree to be a partner in this grant. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think, Jim, at this point, and we're going to let Kevin Malone correct us if we're wrong, but I believe we're not asking the board for MOU at this point, but a letter of support which identifies the different support services that exist in Del Norte County. Kevin's going to give us an overview of the program, and then we'd like Mr. Tom Kissinger, Deputy Superintendent of Instruction for Del Norte County Unified School District, to talk about the coordination and collaboration we've had throughout the county from 0 to 5 and kindergarten through high school, and College of the Redwoods. So Kevin, do you want to give us an overview, please?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Am I able to just share my screen?
I believe you can.
Okay.
We can see it
That
now.
works. Okay, good. Let's see now. Okay. Okay, so some of this was just mentioned. I'll run through this fairly quickly. Normally, putting together a Promise Neighborhood grant like this would take 3 to 6 months. But what happened this year is the Department of Education announced a while back that they were opening the window and there was only 6 weeks to pull together a proposal. And my wife and I had moved up here. She's written a couple of these in San Diego that were successful. We had talked to Terry about bringing one up here, but there was no way we could put it together in 6 weeks. So what happened at the end of 6 weeks is they opened it up for another 6 weeks. And all of a sudden we were in a position to try and do it. And so I apologize that this whole thing has been so rushed, but that's not our fault. It's the federal government's. So this is the Department of Education grant. It was, it's been active since the beginning of President Obama's term. It's modeled after the Harlem Children's Zone. And the understanding is if you want to disrupt a cradle to prison pipeline, you need a cradle to career network of supports and services with a continuum of care and lots of coordination. So there will be 5 to 7 awards this year. They're 4 to 6 million per year for 5 years. Generally speaking, they assign one to a tribal application. So we are competing. We just have to be the best tribal application in the country, which we're aiming to do. We have to come up with a 50% cash or in-kind work requirement. I'll come back to that in a minute. Let's see now. It's a place-based model. Lots of focus on early learning, which I'll come back to in a second. And very importantly, it is data-driven. Everyone comes together and we're looking at data together. There's a nearby Promise neighborhood that's been active for a while that's also native-led. It's called corningpromise.org. Not going to belabor this too much, but here are the required outcomes. The first 5 you will see are all in school, but there's a really deep understanding in this Promise Neighborhood approach that schools and teachers can't do it alone. And the whole notion of no child left behind or it takes a village, that all sounds good, but if you don't have intensive services and focused resources, you can't do it. And Promise Neighborhood aims to fill all those gaps with new services. So the second 5 outcomes understand that it takes the entire community, that kids need to eat well, that students need to feel safe, we need to decrease student mobility. All of this is about community engagement. And there's a focus on early childhood, which is just smart. It's what we should do. But there's also a focus on the family. If a kid is not doing well, there's probably something going on at home. So there's a focus on family as well. Let's see here. From San Diego, just some successes from the ones there. Early childhood, early learning network. You can see here that year after year after year, kids are entering school more prepared. Here are some results from 3rd to 6th grade. You can see everything's heading in the right direction. I'll point your attention to that last one, chronic absenteeism, reduced to 0%. This is phenomenal too, and I'll return to some of the approaches. 100% high school graduation rate, 98% college enrollment rate, and 92% college persistent rate. This is important, and we'll talk about it quickly. But in our approach, we have academic advocates that stay with kids from 7th grade all the way through their first year in college, because a lot of first generation college students, they don't make it through that first year. And in our program, we stick with them. There is deep community engagement. We will be hiring kind of an army of promotoras or cultural guides. We will be building parent centers in the schools, the targeted schools that we're looking at. And note on the schools, we are starting in Crescent Elk, Smith River, Margaret Keating, and Del Norte High. And in year 2, we're adding 4 new schools. We'll move into Sunset, Joe Hamilton, I can't remember where else, but here is an image of what we've been put together over the last 6 weeks. So a big shout out and thank you to all of our partners. All of you, I'm sure, are aware of the Building Healthy Communities initiative. I believe the reason we are teed up and prepared to win this grant is because there's been a decade of work through Building Healthy Communities to set this up. Were it not for the BHC, I don't think we could have even come close to competing for this, and we certainly wouldn't have got it done in 6 weeks. I'll return to the partners in a second, but I'll just say that some of the things we're going to be able to do is universal home visiting. expand it to all children, that we're going to create a new infant toddler center. We're going to rebuild our FRCs in the Smith River and Klamath area. There will be intensive in-school support, which I'm going to allow Tom Kissinger to talk more about what's going to happen in the schools. Outside of schools, I want to just draw your attention to a couple of things that we are going to be investing in parent centers in schools and youth recreation, both in the summer and summer bridge programs. That there will be college, a new CTE program, I think it was construction, manufacturing, and utilities that will be funded through this. We'll continue healthy food and school garden support, new American Indian Education Center in Smith River. And that's just to name a few things. So in the 6-week planning process, we granted a magic wands to everyone we talked to try and think outside the box. And a few things I just wanted to mention came up over and over, and you guys have heard these. Mental health and social emotional health came up as a key issue. Transportation for young people came up as a key issue. Affordable housing came up over and over again, which is outside the scope of this grant. And recruiting and retaining teachers and counselors and also growing our own professionals for those areas came up over and over again. Some of that we were able to respond to. Some of it we're not. We are going to fund a transit study early on, and we are going to be able to also fund continued research in the first 6 months. So when we win this grant, it becomes available in January of 2022. We have a 6-month planning process, and a lot of program design and decisions are being kicked to that time. We know kind of vague areas, but we haven't, we want to engage with school district and parents and everyone to further develop program ideas in that first 6 months. Let's see, what am I forgetting? Let me just name the partners here and thank them. So
let me just stress, Kevin, something you said, which is the transit or transportation study, because it came up in literally every community partner meeting we had. And the idea, the objective behind that study that would be run through the Del Norte Local Transportation Commission would be to brainstorm with Redwood Transit and other transit partners, as well as community members and parents who recognize that there are after school and other opportunities, but safely getting our kids back and forth, or young adults being able to be on the public system, or having a community van share program. We just want to look at all the moving parts and the pieces, and we thought the transit study in the first 6 months of this grant would also help with that. I just wanted to stress that, Kevin. Thank you very much.
Good. The other thing that we have done is in each school is going to get what we're calling a participatory budgeting, like $100,000 per school. So we're going to engage parents and young people and give them a chunk of money. Say, we're going to identify the problems that the parents want to solve on site, and we're going to give them a budget in order to do so. And with that, I think I want to ask Tom to talk about the in-school support.
Thank you, Kevin. I think my video is not up still, so maybe if they can.
On the bottom left, Tom, at least on my screen, it has a video. There we go.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Kevin and Terry and Jim, and Board of Supervisors. It's my honor to be here in front of you this evening, really speaking on behalf of the school district. when it was talked about earlier, when Terry spoke earlier about this being kind of a whirlwind 6-week process, it has been a very, very short time. But in that time, what I really like about the development of this grant is that a lot of time and attention was put to looking at what are the needs of the school district, and how can, through the Yurok tribe, how can we really support the students, parents, and staff and in this community. And what ended up, I'm not going to speak for a very long time here, but what I am going to tell you is that these investments are not just not just in our children and our schools, but these are community investments that really look at, like we called the cradle to career, investing in our community. One of the things that we've identified as a significant need that the grant will support are supporting the behavioral health needs of our children. There's no question that particularly through the time of the pandemic, things have gotten really challenging for our children and families in this community. Our counselors are overwhelmed. We don't have enough emotional, behavioral, and mental health support. What this would do would bring additional mental health counselors and social workers to our schools that would support our students and families in ways that we're trying our best to provide that support now. We're doing the best we can, and we're doing a good job. But the need is more than what's available to provide the support. The other thing that this grant brings is an expansion and an investment in our career tech educational program too. We currently have, I believe it's about 10 career pathways in our school district right now. But what this will do is develop those even more, provide more opportunities for children, more opportunities for professional development for staff, and really invest in our older students, looking at what opportunities do we have here in Del Norte to provide for them so that they can come back and invest in our community and be successful here. The other thing that that this grant does is very strategically provides tier 2 academic support to our children. And when I say tier 2, tier 1 is what everybody gets. But we know that many of our students are struggling academically. The tier 2 support provides additional tutoring and technology support so that we can identify areas of weakness for our students very quickly and provide support to them, prescriptive support, so that they can get to be competitive at grade level, so that they're reading, they're not learning to read, but they're reading to learn by the time they're in 3rd grade. And so when I look at all the things that I see, we call it a river of opportunity. Well, that river of opportunity starts with our youngest children. What I really like about this grant is that one of the heaviest investments is in the 0 to 5 years, where our children, the youngest children at the youngest ages, get the support they need. So by the time they get into school, they can be competitive, successful, happy, and comfortable. But then it goes on through our elementary schools, and we add additional schools in the out years of the grant and then goes all the way to career tech education, preparing kids for college and career. I can't think of a partnership or an investment in a community that is, I've never seen one as collaborative as this, and as open to looking at different perspectives and points of view, and providing all sorts of support for our children and families. So I would just like to extend my gratitude to Kevin, to Terry, to Jim, to Amy, and I was going to say to Allison, the grant writer, and everybody who's participated. This has been a massive effort. To all of our counselors and all of our staff who have participated in providing information for this grant. Anyway, I think the school district benefits tremendously from the support, and I'm looking forward to. I really like that Kevin said is when we get this, not if. I know there's a lot of planning and preparing that would go into it, but I like the confidence, Kevin, and to the Board of Supervisors, thank you for the time.
So I'll
Thank
just,
you.
I think I'm handing this back to Terry, but we're about done. What we need from you is at this point, a letter of support. And it's not an MOU at this point. And basically, we only need to come up with a 50% match over the 5 years. And that match is not new money. So basically, we've identified with Heather services that you're already providing, not new ones. The grant does not ask for that, but what it does do is create new coordination and new entryways for people to come through there. And I would say that we're trying to create not a safety net, but a trampoline so that when somebody falls through, they're thrown back up.
Thanks, Kevin. Terry, why don't you wrap it up so we could get to some questions from the board?
Oh, okay. I want to pitch it to Madison Flynn to close out, Chair. But I had two comments on what Tom and Kevin said. One, I wanted the board to know that this is a strong Republican and Democrat in Congress. The Senate Minority Leader has indicated their continued support for this program and project because of the potential of what it can do for communities. There is only going to be one tribally led selected project in the country. As Kevin said, Building Healthy Communities, BHC, has teed us up in this region in a way that makes us competitive. And even if we are not selected for this one as the one project in the United States, I'm okay with that because we've built some muscle here. We've built some collaborations that we're going to continue to build on. We're committed to youth organizing and youth leadership and working with our schools. So that's not going to go away. And so I'd like Madison Flynn to close our presentation out. Madison is Deputy Director of Northern California Indian Development Council, which many of us know as NCIDC, but it is a statewide organization. Madison may not be able to present. I realize she might not be on your previous presenters list, but hopefully she can talk about her view of the project and the fact that NCIDC has identified $3.2 million in match shares that they spend in education and career services in Del Norte County.
She is with us, Terry. Madison, please.
Good morning. Thank you. I was raising my hand. First of all, thank you for allowing us to come propose this letter of support or support this, this initiative. As Mr. Kissinger said, this has been a massive collaboration amongst all the partners and all the ideas with that. Sometimes, over 35, 40 people at these meetings. And it's really exciting to see their from the beginning to the end and what it's accumulated to this. NCIDC has some successful educational programs here in Humboldt County, and we're really excited that when we are funded, that we can expand those to the Del Norte area, such as our Indigenous Education Advocacy Program. We've had some workshops and roundtables with over 300 people attending, some from the Del Norte Unified School District, Humboldt County School District, and even as far as down as Madera County, I think one of them. So the efforts far wide, and we definitely want to be able to expand that to the Del Norte Unified School District, and also expand into another additional education center in the Smith River. But I just wanted to note that we're really excited. NCIDC is really excited to be part of this very important initiative for all the Del Norte youth.
Great. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Terry, there was one other you said you had coming.
I combined them with broad bipartisan support and the fact that regardless of being funding chair, we're going to continue to support this type of effort of working with the school district and our community. So.
Okay, so then I'd like to go ahead and open it up for questions from the board. I know Supervisor Hemmingson had his hand up. I will say your Your presentation today is extremely well timed with the Week of the Young Child, which we're recognizing this week. So very well timed. Supervisor Hemmingson, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair Howard. Thanks, Terry. I'm going to pick on you because I've known you the longest and I know you the best. So I appreciate you putting this all together, and I appreciate everybody who showed up. Kevin and Tom and Jim and Madison, thank you all for presenting. I know Chair Howard and I, have been huge advocates of the 3 Read 23 early childhood learning, and it would be very difficult for us not to support this. I can't imagine that we would not come in line to do this. As Tom said, up until grade 3, you learn to read, and after that, you read to learn. So that's really important to me. My daughter is big in the library, working with young kids. She does just a phenomenal job. I'm so proud of her for doing that. But I am curious about the match part. I know the grant was $4 to $6 million. Is that actually half of that, and the other half is in-kind support or things that we're already doing, like you said? So I just want to know how that works. And is each group that is picked to provide resources to, do they come up with part of the match, or does the county do that? I'm just curious about that part of it. But I got to say, thank you all for coming. I'm very supportive. So keep up the work, and supportive of it, whether we get funded or not, along with you.
Jerry, I will drop in the chat box some information about the White House initiative and how it is directing several different federal entities to work together on this program. And the match is one of those unique things where federal funds can be used as match in a federal program. And what we are asking the county, and I believe that Heather Snow we've worked with Heather to talk about the county. And it's not any new money from the county. It is existing money that you are already directing to programs and projects. And we have to, if the county was leading this effort, you'd have to come up with 100% of the implementation match, because
Right.
the tribe's leading
Terry,
the effort. It's 50%.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I understand that part of it, but my question was, is the actual dollars that we're going to get, is the dollars going to be between 4 and 6 million? Or are we going to get half of that amount and the other half is going to be matched? That's my question. I understand how the matching can work, and we can use the programs that we already have in place, but the actual funds that are going to come forward to us, is that up to 6 million that we're going to get?
Correct.
We provide 6 million in match in some way, shape, or form. That was my only question.
Yeah, we get 6 million. If selected, we would get 6 million a year, with the additional match coming from what we've identified already from letters of support and MOUs with community partner agencies.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Other questions from the board?
I don't have any
Darren?
other questions. I'm sorry, was Supervisor Short going?
Hey, Darren looked like he had a question.
Let's go ahead and open it up for public comment at this time then. Kylie, do we have any public comment?
Chair, I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time.
Okay. Well, then we'll go ahead and circle back. Tara, really appreciate this.
Chair?
Yes.
I apologize, but I just had a hand come up.
Quite okay. Please.
Tamara, you are on.
Hi, this is Tamara Layton, the Executive Director of the Local Transportation Commission. I just wanted to confirm that there have been a ton of meetings about this project, and I think we've got some really good ideas for identifying challenges and solving them. And I support the effort for this grant and also the continuing efforts. If the grant doesn't come through, that we have identified problems that we really do need to solve. Some of them are transportation problems.
Thank you, Tamara.
Thank you, Tamara.
Okay, any others, Kylie?
Yes, one moment. Crystal, you are on.
Hi, this is Crystal Helton, a Klamath resident. I just want to say thank you, like you all have. It's nice to know that someone's still working on all the stuff that we've been working on for years in our community. I fully support this. I just messaged somebody. I said this is probably the most exciting thing I'm most excited about right now in my county. So as a Klamath parent, we absolutely need to move forward with something like this. Thank you all.
Thank you, Crystal.
Kylie?
Yes, we do have a couple more hands up. It says Delnor probation. I'm thinking it's probably Raymond. Lonnie?
Yeah, this is Chief Raymond. I'm actually a member of the First Five Commission, as well as a board member for the Family Resource Center of the Redwoods. Everything I've heard about this grant proposal and how True North and Yurok Tribe have led us through this is pretty amazing. And I just want to express my support and my thanks to them for looking for opportunities to bring these things to our community and finding ways to support these critical things. So thank you.
Thank you, Lonnie.
And I do have somebody else. Lori, you are on.
Hi, and this is Lori Nesbitt. I'm a Yurok tribal member. I'm a Del Norte High 1979 graduate. And I come back home to support people to graduate from Del Norte County. And I think that this is something that we really need to start pushing our children to be able to learn. And I now work with the tribe, and I'm the opioid program manager. So not only am I in support of people with their addictions and getting their families together and getting the families back together with their parents, this is part of our children's place of being able to be citizens of our Del Norte County. So I support this, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Chair, I'm not seeing any more hands raised at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we approve and authorize the chair to sign a letter of support for the Promise Neighborhood Grant. And in speaking to this literacy issue that we've got, I think this year it's probably been 3 Zoom 23, because kids are having to learn to Zoom, and they're getting pretty proficient at it. So anyway, it's pretty impressive, all the stuff that the kids have been through, the ones that hung in there and stayed with it. So pretty proud of them. But anyway, I would like to make that motion.
Thank you, Supervisor.
I will second the motion and just also say thank you for this presentation. You had me at hello, and I think that you've done an enormous amount of work. And I do hope that regardless of if you get this grant or not, that the momentum that you've started continues.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Kylie, please.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. And I too would like to reflect some of the comments from the board before we close this item. I really appreciate the dialogue that Kevin has brought to the table. More importantly, the capacity and knowledge from San Diego that you have brought to us today, Kevin. I think Terry, as I'm seeing his head nod, knows that and recognizes the importance that this will help us out with. Mr. McQuillan, having the Yurok tribe step up to the plate as community partners in this respect, not only for all 4 federally recognized tribes in Del Norte County, but also those not federally recognized, is going to be incredible. And Mr. Kissinger, and doing a great service for Del Norte County School Office of Education and also the district, and really integrating a lot of what we're looking at with these wraparound services for our children. I cannot think of a better time to really, as Dr. Ross always said from the California Endowment, move upstream and really attack these issues head on with our children. And as we now reflect with this letter of support, wish you Godspeed in achieving this goal of bringing these opportunities to our children here in Del Norte County. And thank you again. Really appreciate you joining us today. You have our full support. All right, let's go ahead and circle back. I believe we have items number 4 and 5. It's my understanding Lieutenant Bill Stevens is on with us today, and also Mr. Raymond with Del Norte County. My understanding that he also might have some components of this and can answer some of our questions for the board. So let's go ahead and queue them up if we could, Kylie, so we could.
Lieutenant Kyle Stevens, Kylie.
Okay, it looks like, Chair, it looks like they're on. They just need to unmute.
Okay. Bill, are you with us today?
Chair.
It's Kyle, by the way.
Lieutenant Kyle Stevens.
Sorry. Please, Kyle. Take it away.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I got a kind of a connection issue. I'm here for the questions you guys had for the safekeepers.
Please, Valerie.
Yes, thank you, Kyle. My questions were that, and I don't mean to blindside, I did send an email, so I just don't want you to think that I'm doing a gotcha moment here, because it's not at all.
No problem.
I only had some questions because this is going to be roughly about $150,000 that we end up doing transferring. And I know it's not necessarily our money, but my question is that I was a probation officer, so we did a but-for test. So they committed these new charges in prison. They were in prison serving a sentence.
Yes.
Now they commit the new crime. Now, have they gone back to state prison for those crimes? Why are we paying the prison for that? Is my first question. My second is, one of them is released. And so I want to know, should we enter that contract now or wait till he's actually sentenced?
So these contracts are actually from October and January, respectively. I believe I spoke to our financial officer. We have 4 that the state has not collected on. So these are for services that have already been rendered. Essentially, you're correct. They were in Pelican Bay serving a sentence for a prior commitment. They committed new offenses while they were in prison, and their release date was coming up in the middle of their trial for their new charges. So, and this was also in the middle of, we had about a little over a third of our population was state commitments that we have not been able to release to a reception center yet. So we were overpacked at that point. So part of the safekeeper was so that if safekeeper wasn't put into place, once their sentence ended in Pelican Bay, they would have been transferred to county jail for the remainder of their trial. And then however that trial resolved. I don't know exactly what their sentences were. I do know, as speaking with Stormy, that at least one of them was an 1170 sentence, it's a sentence that would have been, as you were in probation, she probably, it's the AB 109. So they're still serving that sentence in state prison, and we are paying them for that, but we're being reimbursed by the state for it through the AB 109 stuff.
Okay, yeah, that was my only question. Is I wanted to, for lack of a more sophisticated term, that the state wasn't double dipping, right? We weren't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wanted just some clarification on that. So I do appreciate it. I'm sorry for the holdup and the
no problem.
But I did want to understand that before I actually voted on it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Lieutenant Stevens. Any other questions from the board? Okay. Kylie, is there any other public comment on this item?
Yeah, one moment. Linda, you are on.
Hi, it's my understanding that from what I read from the court records just yesterday, that Brayhan Williams is currently in Alameda County. He was released. He was released from Pelican Bay, but he did get a charge in 2020, and on April 1st, he went to court and was released on his own recognizance by Judge McElfresh and signed a 977 waiver of a personal appearances for non-crucial court appearances, and then was released to Alameda County. And I don't know if he's returning or if he has to make a court appearance through Zoom or whatnot, but it's 4/15/2021. And the thing is to hear the second charge. And so are you still going to be requesting funds for that then? Because he's not even here. Mr. Stevens. Hello?
The
That's a question for me.
Are there any other questions, Ms. Sutter? And then we'll have Mr. Stevens respond to any of those questions directly to the board.
Okay, so the question is why are we going to be paying $70-some thousand when this inmate's not here and he's been released to the streets? And there is a possibility that he might be convicted on these charges if the DA still plans to even hear the case, because quite frankly, if he's in Alameda County, let them contend with him instead of Del Norte County having to pay $70,000 for a weapon that was found in soap right before he leaves Pelican Bay.
Okay, thank you.
He has no comment.
Mr. Stevens, if you could, please.
So my understanding is, like I said, Mr. Williams specifically, his safekeeper was signed into order back in October of last year. And so this is actually a payment for services that have already been rendered. The safekeeper was in place while he was while he was awaiting trial for the new charges. So if he was released on OR and is now in another county, my understanding is from the bill stopped accruing once he was released.
Okay, great. That's money we don't have to worry about. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks for joining us today. Mr. Hemmingson.
Yeah, Kyle, maybe you can explain why don't we do this up front when we sign the agreement? Why don't we give the okay then? Why does it seem to be retroactive? That's
so. Speaking with Stormy, when we get the court order for the safekeeper, she submits the contract request. So this is the state taking over 6 months to try to collect on a bill.
Has it always worked like that, or is it just a slowdown due to Corona?
Well, I can only speak to these times because I've only been in charge for these last two. My understanding is it's not really a common thing that happened in the first place, but due to our overcrowding and the state not taking their state prisoners from any of the counties for practically a year, that's what kind of built these two up. Under other circumstances, we might have been able to hold on to them, but and that's without getting too detailed into their specific hearings. But yeah, I don't know how long traditionally the amount of time the state takes to collect on these bills is.
Okay, it was a good question by Supervisor Hemmingson. So
it was. My follow up is, though, in this particular document, it shows that the prison bed reimbursement contract is for future. So if this is something that we've already, a bill that we need to pay because it's past due because of whatever reason, but this is showing a projected. So that was what kind of triggered my curiosity, is that do we even know what their sentence is yet?
I don't. And if Mr. Williams is out on OR and he still has a case pending, I don't know what he could be looking at.
Yeah, and that wasn't that whether or not he's on OR or not, I had no idea.
Yeah.
But what I was just curious to know is if we don't have a sentence yet, how do we know that how much we have to pay?
Yeah, that I don't have a really good answer for you, other than, like I said, if either one of these gentlemen were to receive a proper state sentence, state prison sentence, we would not be paying for that. If it's an 1170 sentence, then that would have been served in a jail under normal circumstances, but they will continue to be in prison because of the safekeeper. And basically it's they charge us and then pay us for what they charged us.
Okay. That makes total sense.
I guess it's a real weird roundabout way of doing it, but I guess that's how they're going to do it.
Welcome to the state of California.
Thank you.
Chair,
Yes,
we do have another hand raised for public comment.
different,
Yes.
please.
Chief
This is-
Freeman, you are on. You're just
Yeah,
gonna
this
move-
is Chief Raymond from the probation department. I can, if you'd like me to speak to case outcome or pending case outcome, I can speak to that as well.
Supervisor Starkey?
I don't know that we know that. I mean, I don't think that, I mean, I guess if they've been convicted, I'd like to know that actually.
So Mr. Laura, I think he was the first of the two items. He was convicted in January to 4 years for a state prison eligible offense. There was a period of time, from what I can see in my records that I have access to, that he did complete his prior sentence. And so the contract would cover any safekeeper issues that go between the completion of that sentence and him being sentenced on the new case.
Okay.
So that would cover that one. Mr. Williams was released on OR. He was, as the lieutenant already said, he was being held on safekeeper status, and the court chose to release him after a California Supreme Court decision. So he is on concurrent supervision with my department for pretrial, as well as state parole for his completed sentence. His case will continue, as far as I'm aware. It is continuing to go through the process for prosecution and disposition, and his next court date's later this week.
Okay, so would Lieutenant Stevens, would you be comfortable if we tabled 5, since he's not yet been convicted, and or do you feel like we need to, 4, I believe it's all set, we're ready to go. The 5 is involving Mr. Williams. Would you be comfortable for us to table that until after his next court appearance?
Well, like I said, I don't know what portion of that bill is for the time he spent in safekeeper before he was OR'd. And I don't really have a lot of comment on that either way. He's no longer in facility, and if he was OR'd, then I don't know if that necessarily nullifies the safekeeper contract in general.
Okay.
So
right, I don't want to interfere with any contracts, so.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, I would recommend you actually take up the item, because he was on safekeeper status before his release, and it is very likely that that will need to be picked up at some point when he does come back into custody. And so I think it would benefit the sheriff's department as well as the county as a whole if that contract is in place.
Okay. All right. Thank you for this lively discussion. I appreciate this.
It was. Appreciate you clearing up those muddy waters.
So Kyle or Lonnie, if you're still listening in, the alternative to not going with this contract, it says we would be in contempt of a court order. Can you speak as to the timeframes of when the county will be found in contempt, and what is well, I was going to ask what's the nature of the workers' compensation claims, but you probably can't answer those. So if you could just speak to the being in contempt of court, I would appreciate it.
Well, in order to qualify for the safekeeper, there was a hearing for each individual, and both the DA's prosecutor and the defendant's attorney were able to present argument for whether or not safekeeper should be granted in general. So it is a court order that the safekeeper was placed for both of them. Other than like the nature of the contempt is just the same as any other court order that would be violated.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you, Kyle.
So I'd like to just make a motion that we approve items 4 and 5 on the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second from Supervisor Short. Kylie, please pull the vote.
Supervisor Hemmingson,
Yes.
Supervisor Short,
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey,
Yes.
Chair Howard.
Yes. All right, I'm going to go ahead and read item number 2, which was a proclamation on our consent agenda for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Whereas sexualized violence affects children, youth, adults, and elders of all genders from all racial, cultural, and economic backgrounds, with public health and social justice implications for every person in Delaware County. And whereas it is estimated that 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 7 boys will be sexually victimized by age 18. And whereas sex trafficking and sex exploitation happens in our community, disproportionately impacting the lives of youth, young adults in our community. And whereas recent national headlines indicate increased accountability and awareness, we as a community are presented with the opportunity to build on that momentum and create positive change locally. And whereas the county seat of Del Norte, Crescent City, and the North Coast Rape Crisis Team have partnered to provide expanded emergency services to citizens impacted by trafficking, sexual assault, and domestic violence, benefiting all of Del Norte County. And whereas staff and volunteers of the North Coast Rape Crisis Team provide 24-hour services to survivors and their significant others to support those impacted and ensure survivors are not re-victimized. And whereas promotion of best practices responses accomplished through multidisciplinary teams such as the Sexual Assault Response Team, as well as partnership with governmental, tribal, and community-based organizations. And whereas the North Coast Rape Crisis Team provides prevention education, self-defense, and awareness-raising programs, encouraging every person to participate in ending sexual violence and promoting social justice. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Del Norte Board of Supervisors reaffirms its commitment to the North Coast Rape Crisis Team and its vision, a world without violence, and acknowledges this day, April 2021, as Sexual Assault Awareness Month, passed and adopted the 13th day of April 2021. Thank you for allowing me to read that into the record. And we're going to go ahead. Yes.
We do have a couple representatives from the Rape Crisis Team that would like to speak.
Oh, absolutely. Please.
Hi, I'm Annalise. I'm an advocate here, and I'm with my teammate Liz Hutchins as well. We'd like to thank you. We'd like to thank the supervisors for your continued support of Sexual Assault Awareness Month and the work of the North Coast Rape Crisis Team. Sexual abuse of children, teens, and adults of all genders continues to impact the lives of many of our community members. And together we can work towards the vision of NCRCT, a world without violence. The North Coast Rape Crisis Team continues to provide free and confidential services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to anyone of any age or gender who has experienced or been affected of sexualized violence. We are here to listen, believe, offer options and support. In doing this, we partner with allies in law enforcement, the district attorney's office, victim witness, medical providers, and many other public, private, and tribal organizations to ensure respect for survivors, community safety, and perpetrator accountability. In addition, we provide a wide range of primary prevention programs for children as young as preschool throughout elementary, junior and high, as well as college, as well as parent and professional trainings. These programs promote our beliefs that violence is a choice and that every person deserves a violence-free life and that no one deserves to be harmed. Sexual Assault Awareness Month provides an opportunity to raise awareness and build strong partnership. This April, the North Coast Road Crisis Team and Fine Line Design Tattoo have partnered together for a month-long fundraiser. All proceeds will be benefiting our agency. We would also like to remind everyone that International Jeans for Justice Day is April 28th. Jeans for Justice gives each of us the opportunity to stand with and for survivors, to let them know that what happened to them is not their fault, and to hold those who chose violence accountable for the choices they make. If you'd like additional information on Jeans for Justice, just let us know. Again, thank you for the support of the North Coast Road Crisis Team and of Sexual Assault Awareness Month. We look forward to continued partnership and collaboration with our community. Thank you guys again for all the support that we get.
Thank you for joining us,
Thank
Annalee.
you.
Appreciate it. All right.
You got somebody else?
Yes, Neil? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I thought Kylie had two people that had their hand raised. I was just checking with her.
Okay.
No?
No, we're good. Sorry about that.
No worries. It's all good. All right. I would like to address items 23, 24, 25, and 26 before we have a short break. So let's move on with item 23, if we could, with the board's approval, to approve and authorize the two newly hired health educator twos to start at step C, retroactive to their start date of April 2nd, 2021, as requested by the Director of Health and Human Services.
Move for approval.
We have a
Second.
motion and a second. Kylie, public comment on this item.
Give me one moment. Linda's had her hand raised for a while. I'm not sure if it's for this item, but we will see. Linda, you are on.
I'm sorry, Collie. I don't know. It must have been for something else. And so I don't have anything to say. Thank you, though.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay, Chair, we do not have any public comment. I apologize for that.
Okay, can you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take up budget transfer items, which is approve and adopt budget transfer item 04-01 in the amount of $8,000 clerk recorder budget unit. And then also budget transfer item 04-02 in the amount of $29,000 with the sheriff budget unit. And then budget item 04-03 in the amount of $29,495 with the emergency response funding unit.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve budget transfer 0401, 0402, and 0403.
Thank you.
Second.
And we have a second on the table. Kylie, public comment.
Chair, I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time.
Great. Can you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. All right. At this time, I'd like to take a brief 5-minute recess, and we'll circle back around at 12:17. Great. Welcome back. Appreciate your patience while we took a quick break. Okay, we'd like to move on with item 27 at this time, which is approve and authorize the chair to sign a letter of opposition to Assembly Bill AB 339 Lee, State and Local Government Open Meetings, which builds upon California's Brown Act, will add significant unfunded costs on local public agencies related to the conduct of public meetings and access and participation to those meetings as requested by the county administrative officer. Neil?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks, Chair Howard. This is just in following the lead of rural county representatives of California, RCRC, and other local agencies, requesting the board authorize the chair to sign a letter of opposition for AB 339, which could add, has the possibility and potential of adding significant unfunded costs to public agencies.
Yeah, I really also like the fact, Mr. Lopez, that they've left of course, the state legislator out of this process. So it's great that they're willing to exert their will on the rest of the elected boards, but not themselves. Really disappointing.
My only comment is I'm fully in support of us doing this. If I could, Chair, I'm sorry, I just.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm fully in support of us opposing this, but I just want it to be known that it's because in this particular bill, so many things are embedded in there that aren't practical. I love the idea of us opening it up for, phone calls or internet, if that's feasible in the future. But the way that this is written is just not a bill that works for us. And so that's the reason for me opposing the bill, supporting the letter to oppose the bill.
Yep.
And I think that's the reason behind the direction here, Chair Howard, is that this, as written, until some of the funding issues are addressed, most of the local agencies are opposing this bill.
Yep, understood. Any other comments from the board? Supervisor.
Yes. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is, another one of those one size fits all unfunded mandates that are thrust upon the rural counties or the smaller counties. And it just doesn't work well, as Supervisor Starkey said. And I would make the motion that we write a letter in opposition to this bill. Thank you.
I will second that. And just to dovetail off of both comments, the way it was written and all of the in all meetings that are written into this bill, not giving any wiggle room for any kind of meeting that is outside of a boardroom, it really would make it just supremely cumbersome to hold a on-site meeting. So yes, I'm certainly in agreement that we need to send this letter of opposition.
Very good. So we do have a motion and a second on the table. Kylie, can you open it up for public comment, please?
Yes, give me one moment. Robert, you are on. You just need to unmute your mic.
Hi, this is Robert DeRigo. I just wanted to I don't really know a whole lot about the bill, but I think short of, the county preparing, a kind of a statement on what they think it would cost, I really like public involvement. I mentioned this to a lot of you, and anything that makes public involvement more viable is actually investment worth taking. The only thing I've noticed in 15 years of watching this board do meetings is the only thing lacking is the people. The people don't really show up. And so I wouldn't, this is something that I think we're just liable to do, is that you have to make everything very accessible for the public to show up and participate. Most of these meetings are very hollow chambers, literally, when there's not a pandemic. There's not anybody in there unless they're, we're giving out plaques or there's someone who has a special interest measure. You really don't get the public involved a whole lot. And so I would not oppose this measure, short of the county actually having, there's a couple issues on the agenda today that don't have any of the supporting documents for the public to have made an opinion on, to weigh in, attached online. I couldn't find supporting documents, that would have some sort of idea of where this was, these items were going to go. And so I think maybe it is the opposite direction that the county should take. You know, I think it's just such a small investment, really, and such a great return would be to have, you know, the public, you know, government of the people, by the people. You know, thank you very much.
Kylie, any further public comment?
Chair, I'm not seeing any at this time.
Okay. Although I do appreciate the comments of Mr. Dorigo, I would like to say that, yeah, absolutely. We would love to see more accent of the public here. It doesn't happen for various reasons, but the way this bill is currently authored and what it's explaining, as you'll see if you go into the text of the bill, there's probably a reason that this bill hasn't made it through committee yet. And it'll probably wind up hopefully on the cutting room floor with this author revisiting it to make it more workable for those communities that have to actually implement it without funding. And so, although I agree completely with the public comment and with Supervisor Starkey, it's just not ready for the showroom at this point in time, and it's probably why it won't get there. So at this point, Kylie, could you please take a vote?
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. All right, let's move on with item number 28, which is approve and authorize the chair to sign a comment letter to the Board of Forestry regarding revisions to the state minimum fire safe regulations 2021 following the posting of the 45-day notice for rulemaking. I know there's been a tremendous amount of confusion with this, and more importantly with how the Board of Forestry is rolling this out. So I see that Ms. Kungstel's on with us today, and also Jana Valenkovic with UC Cooperative Extension, who have been stalwarts in really driving these pieces home and our understanding in Del Norte County of this, and also Humboldt for that matter. So appreciate you joining us today. Heidi, why don't you kick it off for us, please?
Okay, good afternoon, board. Thank you again for having this item on our agenda today. It's a very important document as far as the regulations that are being proposed and the potential impacts to our county. The California Department of Forestry is proposing significant revisions to what is currently referred to as the state fire safe regulations, which they have rebranded the state minimum fire safe regulations 2021. Currently, the Board of Forestry has approved a draft of these regulations and is awaiting rulemaking by the Office of Administrative Law. Beginning in December of 2020, there were a series of workshops that concluded with the final one being, I believe, sometime in March, where they have provided various drafts that have differed significantly. They ultimately approved a draft that was released on, I believe, March 15th at their March 22nd meeting. There was very little time for people to be able to digest all the information that was included in that latest draft, and we have tried to point out as many things as we could where we still see differences between where they're headed and where we would like to see it. Some of the items in particular that were noted was the lack of a grace period. So for those projects that are currently in the process, would they be subject to the regulations if they were to become effective on July 1? There are requirements for improvements to meet the road standards from the building site currently to a collector road, which that could be a significant cost to the property owner, and then also result to significant improvements on county roads. So we were suggesting alternative language in that case. They have also recommended in some cases where there's just a set number of units that would trigger these regulations, where we believe that establishing thresholds such as a level of service may be a more reasonable approach for development. One of the big issues that was raised earlier during the housing element discussion is what will be the impacts of these regulations on future housing development in our community, as well as other types of development that remains to be seen. one of the things that we have to deal with are all of our natural resources and where we can and can't develop, as well as where you have existing roads, there might be really large trees or creeks or streams or existing drainage infrastructure that are going to prevent landowners from being able to widen their properties. And will there be the proper alternatives or options for them to be able to request exceptions to those? We're still sort of unclear about that. We currently have a really great exception process that is built into the 2016 fire safe regulations that were adopted by our board, where we work collaboratively with the fire planning chief from CAL FIRE down in Fortuna on these exceptions, and it's worked really well. We've been able to find mitigations for most of, if not all of the developers or property owners who have wanted to develop in order for them to be able to move forward with their projects. Again, it remains to be seen whether or not we will still have that capability with the new regulations. And that kind of is a general take on it. As Chair Howard mentioned, Yana has been a huge asset to us throughout this process. She has an expertise that she brings to the table that none of the rest of, at least in my division, our department have, and we've really appreciated her feedback. And I believe she is interested in providing some comments to you as well, related to her interactions at a higher level with other parties involved in the development of these regulations.
Please, thank you for that introduction, Heidi. Yana?
Yes, good afternoon, Chair, members of the board and staff. Thanks for that kind introduction. Director Consult, yes, as a registered professional forester, I do spend a fair bit of time with the California State Board of Forestry and Fire Protection. They're an appointed board that has large responsibilities in forestry as well as in fire-related issues and in policy. And so this update has been triggered through a legislative process, through a committee bill, a conference bill, SB 901 from 2018. And I think everyone gets the spirit of what they're trying to achieve, which is really trying to improve the safety of our communities and make sure that when we have opportunities for thoughtful development, you know, that we take those moments to pause and make sure that we're doing good planning to address the safety and security of our communities, whether they be currently in infrastructure or in future development. The biggest challenge that's going on right now is that SB 901 triggers the board to do some things very quickly. And so they've been under kind of a very fast track process to meet the obligations of SB 901. But in that process, they've sort of bifurcated two types of development. One, which is the infill style of development, most common in rural communities, versus like new subdivisions where you have brand new road infrastructure, you know, brand new areas that are being developed. And I think there's broad agreement about the new development form, but the infill portion, which is what's so common to the North Coast in rural communities, is just not very well worked out right now. So they've put before the board the option to go to a 45-day notice for review by the Office of Administrative Law, knowing that their draft has imperfections in it, knowing that there are challenges. About half of the counties called into the last meeting in March saying, go slow, please. You know, we're just not comfortable with the language. We don't understand it. We can't do analysis on the impact. So, for example, one of their new metrics is road widths. Evaluating development based on road width, which is not a metric that's in any of most rural communities' GIS files and ability to do analysis on this. So they've got some interesting tools and strategies, but it's not one that we can really answer quickly as to how impactful this will be. The board has accepted the imperfections and appreciate the fact that there'll be a lot of engagement through the 45-day notice. And they're looking for, substantial input. And so I just want to acknowledge all the work that Director Kunstl has done in trying to keep you all informed as to what's happening and to be, a player at the table and to try and address these dynamic situations, shall we call it. So it's a bit of a work in progress. The board knows that what they've got is not quite right yet, but they still move forward, I think, because of the pressure of time more than anything. So I'm committed to stay involved and make sure that we can keep tracking this issue along with RCRC as well as CSAC. And we're working both Humboldt and Del Norte counties together as a team to kind of think through these issues and work with our CAL FIRE staff that are responsible to both communities. And so this letter here basically gives you the option to put some formal notice in about the concerns and the information that you have, and acknowledges the spirit as to what is trying to be done in terms of community safety and protection.
Thank you, Yana. I appreciate that. Questions from the board? Okay, very good. I've done a lot on this. Obviously CSAC and RCRC, our lobbying organizations in Sacramento, have also done quite a bit of heavy lifting on this now for the past year. As indicated by staff, the discussions to this point have led to a process that 32 of the counties that participated in the last Board of Forestry meeting aren't comfortable with. And we said, put on the brakes. You're not implementing this, we are. And we do have a process in place, as Ms. Kunstl did outline, that is working very effectively in our community with CAL FIRE. So it's not to say that we don't have something here. It's to say, hey, there's time for us to work out these issues and details. And I have never been so disappointed in a public agencies on the rolling out of 901 in this case, and this urgency, or for lack of a better term, rush to put out a fire that doesn't exist. And you know what? I feel a strong sense that the way this letter is currently framed doesn't really do it justice, in the sense that I think it needs a lot more teeth sometimes. And it's that level of frustration which I expressed to this board today. Heidi's staff is challenged at this point in time and has been for years. We obviously need to find the capacity to address these issues. And with Yana on board, we've been able to really take a deep dive into it. But it's been absolutely disappointing. There was nothing in 901 that said, you guys have to come to this agreement now. We've rushed to this point of this 45-day public comment period. I'm glad we have a letter that we could get submitted, but here's our issue, guys. We didn't solve tsunami awareness, natural disaster issues in this community in 1 year. This has taken decades of conversation with people on the ground in this community to develop emergency response plans, which were well vetted. This is not a well vetted piece. It's a one size fits all, as Supervisor Hemmingson has continued to state throughout this meeting, and it does not currently work as outlined with these regulations for Del Norte County. So I'd appreciate any motion to that extent that sends this response to the board when that 45-day public comment period opens.
I would move to authorize the chair to sign a comment letter to the Board of Forestry regarding these revisions.
A second.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Kylie, public comment, please.
Yes, one moment. Robert, you are on. Robert, you need to unmute your mic. I'm not sure if Robert is away from his computer. His hand's been up since this item started.
Hey, apparently he is, Kylie. Thank you. Is there any others?
There is not.
Okay, let's circle back around for a vote then, please. Kylie, can you please poll it?
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. All right, appreciate that, board. Thank you for all your efforts, both Yana and Heidi, to get this dialed in for us. All right, let's go ahead and move on with item number 29, which is also well-timed, which is approve and authorize the chair to sign and send a letter of support for increased funding for the University of California's Division of Agricultural and Natural Resources, which provides local programs through the UC Cooperative Extension, where advisors and staff are embedded in the county government through an MOU and connected to the talents of the university, to the local communities, as requested by Chair Howard. I think it's not just me. I think it's most of the board here.
Move to approve. And authorize.
I'll second that.
Thank you both. Kylie, public comment.
Chair, I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time.
Great. We'll go ahead and bring it back to the board. And I'll briefly say there was this, not only this issue we just addressed, but also with sudden oak death this last year. University of California Cooperative Extension, Yana in particular, and her staff have done an incredible job to bring capacity to Del Norte County on these really extremely important issues for us to address. And they've done it with expediency, which I think in these current times we absolutely need in order to stay ahead of the game. So I appreciate that. And thank you for those motions, Supervisor Short and Supervisor Starkey. Kylie, can you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Hemmingson,
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey,
Yes.
Supervisor Short,
Yes.
Chair Howard.
Yes. Yana, thanks for everything you do.
Thank you, Yana.
All right.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
You bet. Let's go ahead and with item number 30, which is update community funded projects by Greg Burns of Thorn Run Partners. I've seen Greg, I believe. There he is.
I'm here. How are you, Supervisor?
We're doing wonderfully well today, Greg. Pleasure to see you, and thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here. I know you guys have had a long meeting, it seems like.
Not terribly bad.
Oh, good. Then
Awesome.
anyway, my point was I was going to keep it brief. When I saw you all 2 weeks ago during your last meeting, we talked about, I think we're talking about earmarks, right? I'm sorry, or did you mention American Rescue Plan? Now I'm confused.
Community funded projects, Greg.
Right, I'm sorry. So the community funded projects, we talked 2 weeks ago about those, and you all prioritized a few ideas that administration had presented to you. I've come back to you today to talk to you a little bit about where we are with those. We have gone forward and made the request for the jail project through Mr. Huffman's office, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. Unfortunately, the other request that was prioritized by the board was funding for an emergency operations center, which after speaking more with staff, we determined collectively that there wasn't enough, frankly, time to pull together a real request on that project. So we did defer on that, and certainly we're going to work over the next year to make sure that we're ready for the next opportunity, and really less than a year at this point. We're going to work over the next 6 to 8 months to really put together a more comprehensive strategy on that project request so that we can make it a top priority for the next opportunity. The jail project, though, as I mentioned, is full steam ahead. We had enough information because you all have submitted a few grant applications over the past couple of years to seek funds for that project. I don't necessarily want to get into a ton of detail as to the approach that we're taking, other than the fact that we're going for funding from the Department of Agriculture. They have a program called Community Facilities Grants, where you can seek these kinds of funds if you are a rural community and have certain levels of defined poverty, and you all meet those criteria. So we are able to seek those funds. I have had some preliminary discussions with the Office of Mr. Huffman about the request. They are sorting through not only community funded project requests, but also requests related to the surface transportation bill that they're also going to be working on soon. You'll recall from our conversation 2 weeks ago, we decided that it wasn't an appropriate time to seek any additional funding through that bill for last chance grade. So we've deferred on that as well, I think appropriately. But the point being that Huffman's office is sorting through a number of things that are pressing, and then we'll have an opportunity to talk more about whether or not he may be able to select one of our jail request as one of his 10 priorities that he's able to make of the Appropriations Committee. I'm hopeful, but no promises thus far. We should know by the end of this month whether we are one of his top 10 priorities. And then I also do expect that we'll be able to make this request of the Senate offices, and that should occur sometime later this month or in May, I would assume. And I have no reason to, anticipate that both Senate offices for the state of California won't prioritize and seek appropriations, earmarked funding Whereas I will say there actually are many senators in different states that will not seek the funding. So we're lucky that we have those two to support us on that. That's a real quick update. I also did want to mention briefly, if I may, that the American Rescue Plan, there's no guidance out for that still. We talked about that a little bit 2 weeks ago. And I just want to note that I certainly am keeping on top of that. I would anticipate that we probably won't see any guidance on that until shortly before they release the funds, which is sometime around on or about May 10th, maybe. They are having issues with staffing, just trying to get staffed up. And also, we understand that they, being Treasury, are trying to do the best job that they can to anticipate as many questions as they possibly can so that they provide really comprehensive guidance and then don't need to follow it up with lots of additional information after they release the funds. So hopefully it'll be a thorough guidance document that will really allow you all to appropriately prioritize the use of the funds locally. It's my brief report. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Let's open up the public comment real quick, and then we'll address any board questions. Kylie?
Chair, I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time.
Okay, very good. We'll circle back around to the board. Any questions for Greg at this time?
Yeah, Greg, thanks. If I could, Mr. Chair.
Please.
Yeah, thanks for getting in. Looks like you just made it by a whisker. But I was wondering about how competitive this stuff is. You make it sound like we've got a pretty good shot at it, and I hope we do. Just wondering what your thoughts were on that.
Well, I mean, that's a great question, Supervisor, and I really don't know. To be honest, we don't know how many requests, for instance, Mr. Huffman will receive. We don't know how many requests either senator will receive. And, you know, ultimately, we don't know whether or not we'll be one of their more prioritized requests, and then how many requests they might have funded from those 10 that they can make, at least on the House side. The Senate side, we anticipate that they'll be able to make as many as they want. But of course, they'll be limited by, you know, how many actually get funded. You know, it's back in the old days, 10 plus years ago, Senator Feinstein, you know, being a member on the Appropriations Committee and therefore having a certain amount of additional influence with respect to community funded projects or earmarks, used to receive thousands of requests from throughout the state. You know, a member like Mr. Huffman could have easily received hundreds back then. Now, I don't know that he'll receive hundreds this time because it is a new process. It's kind of happened a bit quickly. They've narrowly defined which accounts you can seek funding from. And we just don't know how many of your, you know, for instance, local government colleagues are engaged in the process and to, you know, the level that they're pursuing things. So I don't know. I think we'll learn a lot more. I feel good about the requests that we've made. I think you all make a good, compelling argument, which I've certainly worked to highlight. And I think, you know, it's a reasonable request that fits appropriately within the program that we're seeking the money from. So I'm hopeful. And, you know, it's also, I think it speaks volumes that it's the only request that the county's making. We're not asking for 6 or 7 things, knowing that would be impossible for him to fulfill those requests, given that he's limited on the number of projects that he can request. I think we've been really cognizant, appropriately so, of the fact that his ability to, you know, or limited ability to ask for projects, you know, we've certainly taken that to heart, and we have limited, therefore, our requests of him so as not to sort of burden him.
Okay, other questions from the board? Okay, Greg, I really appreciate this opportunity for you to present to the board today and do this follow-up on these community-funded projects, these significant balls of yarn that oftentimes become entangled. But I hope as you're batting these around with our congressman and the Senate that you could keep that tangle from happening and really place this ball back in our community with this important earmark. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on with item number 31, which is the fiscal year 2021, 2022 budget update from Neil. Neil, please.
Yes, supervisors, this is just an informational item only. I threw it on here kind of the last minute. I wanted to let the board know that on March 25th, a joint memo from the auditor's office and administration was sent out to each of our county departments to officially kick off the fiscal year 21-22 budget process. And department requested budgets are expected this Friday, April 16th. From there, as most of you know, we'll kick off the budget meetings with the budget team and department heads, as well as their budget representatives. And that process will begin probably the following week. And so throughout that process, I plan to come back to the board at each of these meetings and provide you a brief update on the budget process and progress made all the way through the adopted budget in September. And I don't know if you have any questions for me on that.
Questions from the board at this time? Okay, let's go ahead and open it to public comment then.
Chair, I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time.
Okay, thanks, Neil. I know we'll be paying quite a bit of attention to this as we move towards June and July, and really appreciate you bringing those items back to us so we could further discuss these tight budgetary periods that we're all faced with right now. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Carly, please tell me I didn't miss anything.
No, I think we're all good.
All right.
I spoke up a lot today, so I want to
No, it's all good. All right.
apologize for that, Chair.
No worries. No worries at all. I think we are settled up then for today. Appreciate everybody joining us, and we'll circle back around in 2 weeks at this time and keep going forward with the county business. Thank you again. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.